Previously on the High Risk Wrestling Podcast. And personally, I think this move is because of AEW selling out Wembley Stadium for All In. And this was a great segment. And then Grayson Waller came out and did what Grayson Waller does. And he's perfect as a slimy little cornball. He was like, why would we do WrestleMania here where we could just do it in Australia better? I'm expecting WrestleMania. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everybody. It is Saturday, July 8th. And you know what that means. It is time for the High Risk Wrestling Podcast. I am your host. And it's time for a trial by combat. Yes, Jeremy Pierce, welcome. One and all. As always, you can check me out on the socials on Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube, Charismatic_Creations 52 on Instagram and Threads, the 215 on Twitter, and of course Patreon and Coffee. As any and all donations are welcome. And we got a nice little show for you today, coming out of Money in the Bank. With that shocking turn of events, not talking about Roman, I thought it'd be prudent once again to take a look at the WWE Women's Tag Team Division. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to revamp this division, take a look at these teams, and just talk about it for a little bit. But for now, you know what's next. So just go on and hit my music. You know how it is. So since we're talking about the women's tag team division, I thought it'd be quite prudent if we take a look at, real quick, the 5 greatest women's tag teams. And starting with number 5, I'd be remiss not to mention Toxic Attraction. So this team, NXT essentially dominated the women's division for better and really for worse, with their leader Mandy Rose just being a burden and an albatross on the NXT women's division. But the tag team of JC Jane and Gigi Dolan were the NXT women's tag team champions. They held the championships twice and were a solid team put together. Of course, they broke up because every team in the WWE breaks up, but they were good for what they were. Number 4, Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. Now, this is a team. They have a tag team finisher. They wrestle together. They work out together. They are, by and large, an actual team. First starting out in NXT, and now they are on the main roster. These two work beautifully together, and I definitely could see them really being the standard bearers and the true team of the women's division, because they're just that good. Number 3, the Iconics. Peyton Royce, Billie Kay. What can I say? They weren't the best in the ring, but they had such control over the characters. They were so good on the mic that you couldn't help but be gravitated towards them. They were awesome. They knew what their role was. They're former tag team champions, and they kind of got a bum job because of Vince, and they just deserved so much more. They're still friends to this day. They teamed up when they were in Impact. They became the Inspiration, but these two lovable, enjoyable women were just absolutely awesome. Number 2, the Kabuki Warriors. Okay, now look, Asuka is amazing. Kairi Sane is amazing. They probably should be number 1 just because of how awesome they are, how good they are. But these two women were pretty much dominant. They were dominant in the women's tag team division, even defeating Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch in the tables, ladders, and chairs match. Their reign unceremoniously ended at WrestleMania, losing Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross at WrestleMania at Pandemic Mania. But these two were such a great team that if they were just like told, yo, just go out and dominate, no one would be able to defeat them, with the exception of one team. And that team, even though they were defeated at WrestleMania, there's two team that was together while these two women were coming at the same time. And that team is the Boss and Hug Connection, the team of Bayley and Sasha Banks. Do I need to say more? These are two of the best in the world today. They have such a long storied history together that it was inevitable that they would become tag team champions. They were the first ever women's tag team champions. They begged and pleaded for these titles and wanted to bring honor to it, wanted to make them right. And they got screwed in the beginning, but then during the pandemic, they just did some amazingly beautiful things with the tag team championships. And maybe one day, who knows, they'll team up again. But the Boss and Hug Connection are for sure the number 1 greatest WWE female tag team. Shayna Baszler is one of the best women's wrestlers in the WWE, right? And she was great in NXT, and she's been so on the main roster. She has not sniffed a singles championship on the main roster. I mean, she's got a title shot or two, but completely lost those feuds and never really recovered. But for some reason, she finds herself consistently in a tag team and as a tag team champion. Shayna is one of 6 women that have been tag team champions 3 times. And looking at the list of women, more than half of them are single stars. So we're going to talk about this a little bit later, comes to the detriment of the division that someone like Shayna Baszler has to always be in a tag team. And I'm not trying to denigrate the women's tag team division. No, that's not what we're doing here today. But Shayna Baszler is a dominant wrestler, and she shouldn't be in a tag team, with the exception of Ronda Rousey. We're going to get to that as well. I want more for Shayna because I want to see the Shayna that we got in NXT, not this vampire that we had at one point. I want to see a dominant Shayna Baszler. Tap, snap, or nap. That's what I want. Can someone please give that to me? The WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. I don't even know what to say. These championships are here. I am happy that they're here. Gives the women something else to do, seeing as how they don't get a lot of storylines. I would love for them to have a mid-card championship as well. 2 world championships, a mid-card championship, tag team championships. Their own little division. But something about these women's tag team championships never, ever truly feel and sit just right. So our current women's tag team champions are Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And it seems every so often that Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez in recent times are just tag team champions. If you go to the history of the belts, right, and see who has the most reigns as a wrestler, Raquel has 3, Liv has 2, and their combined days as champion doesn't even eclipse 60 days. Whereas the other 5 women that have been champion at least 3 times, their reigns eclipse a minimum of 120 days. Right? So our current champions are Raquel and Liv has had a few tag team partners, and she asked Raquel to not turn on her, which I can understand, because how did they win these championships? Well, they defeated the team of Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey at Money in the Bank when Shayna Baszler turned on Ronda Rousey. Now, we all thought that Ronda and Shayna were just going to have a long, lengthy, dominant reign. That will not happen. Mainly because it looks like Ronda's contract is up at SummerSlam, and Ronda and Shayna really want to defeat each other. And they're best friends, so I can understand that. But I was praying, I was hoping that these 2 women would reinvigorate the women's tag team division. And now it's not. So now we have Liv and Raquel. And I like Liv, not the biggest fan of Raquel. And we ask ourselves, are these championships cursed? Because a lot of times it feels like the WWE forgets that the championships are there, that they exist. They've been vacated, I know, a minimum of 2 times. They've been vacated twice. And the first time was after Naomi and Sasha Banks just walked out of the company. The other time was when, well, there was an injury. So now the championships can be defended between both Raw, SmackDown, and NXT when they were originally created. But will they be defended on Raw, SmackDown, and NXT? We know Raw and SmackDown. And will her partner turn on her? Like, it just seems like no matter what they try to do, they can never, ever just figure it out with these championships. And I want more. I want so much more for this division. So, are they cursed? Probably. Just like how we feel the TNT Championship is cursed. But maybe, just maybe, Raquel and Liv can do something more. So how about we look at the current teams? So, we have our current tag team champions, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. And see, here's the thing. The main issue with the women's tag team division, and I feel this strongly about this, just how I feel the same about the Impact women's tag team division. A lot of the teams are just 2 singles wrestlers thrown together because they have nothing to do. And usually the teams aren't that great. It's rare that you get An example, like you get a team like The Bar. Cesaro and Sheamus were just thrown together, but they worked. How often does that happen in the women's division? Because we've had many champions, and if you look at the teams, every single one of them were just, almost every single one of them were just thrown together. Now, some of them truly did work, like Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler worked. That might be the only team. But looking at the teams, you know, Damage Control aren't really thrown together. They came as part of a story. Carmella and Zelina thrown together. Natalya and Tamina thrown together. Alexa and Nikki, they're another one. They were thrown together, but they ended up working. It just kind of just happened, and it worked. So that's two. But like Nikki and Rhea, who remembers them as tag team champions? You know what I mean? Asuka and Charlotte, Becky and Lita, Aaliyah and Raquel. Who remembers Alexa Bliss and Asuka as tag team champions? So that's what I mean, that they don't really have any teams. So we're looking at the teams. Liv and Raquel thrown together. They're current champions. We have Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn, who were just the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, lost the unification match to Ronda and Shayna. They were two women that were feuding together, ended up becoming partners, and it worked for them. So they're the exception, not the rule. Just like an Impact right now, Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich are a team now, and that started from two people fighting and ended up having mutual respect for each other, like The Bar. We still have Damage Control. Dakota Kai is out with an injury, but Bayley and Io are still currently a team. We have The Way, Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell. They're a team. They are a team. And they're a team that can be a cornerstone of this division. Period. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's the story there, and they know each other. They've worked together. They're part of a faction. They're part of a family. They work. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, another team. They're a team. They have tag team finisher. They work out together. They practice together. They get their moves together. So they work. They're another cornerstone. What I would like to see, what I would love to see right now would be some combination of Alba and Isla, Candice and Indy, and Katana and Kaden just feud for the championships, because they work. They're all teams. They work. We have Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green, who were just thrown together, but they're starting to click. They're starting to work out there because their separate stories have kind of been parallel to each other, and their gimmicks work together. So they're slowly becoming a team, but I want to see them start to pick up more wins. We have Zoe Stark and Trish Stratus. We're kind of thrown together, but it works for their story, and it's been starting to build. Then we move over slightly to NXT. You have Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend, and Yulisa Leon and Valentina Feroz, that latter being an actual team as well. So we have 9 teams with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 true kind of teams, and Liv and Raquel have started to work together. We're like coming up with tag team finishers and whatnot. So we'll see. So the division kind of is strong. I think it's stronger on the main roster side, and the NXT side needs to grow just, a little bit more, but it can work. You know what I mean? And I like all of these teams. You have the Speed and the Power with Raquel and Liv. You have the veteran kind of team, the mystical team in Alba and Isla. You have like the 2 true teams in Candice and Indy and Katana and Kaden. Like I said, they should be the cornerstone. You got Zoe and Trish, the rookie with the veteran. So I'm curious as to see if WWE is going to put their best foot forward. You know what I mean? But what about the women that are MIA? So we have 9 teams, and if you watch as attentively as I, you know there are a lot of women who are just missing on TV, who just aren't even being used. So there's Emma, Piper Niven, who has just completely disappeared, Tegan Knox, who was on Raw actually this past Monday, but that's about it. Xia Li just doesn't get used. Shotzi, who's here, but she's not here. Tamina was the last time we saw her. And Aaliyah's just gone. I actually had to ask myself today, did Leah get released? Is she still on the WWE roster? And two of these women, Aaliyah and Tamina, are former tag team champions. Actually three, because Tegan Knox is a former tag team champion, I believe. I think Tegan's a former tag team champion as well. So I'm counting 7 women who just aren't on TV, who don't get used. And there's an abundance of women in NXT. They've sent Dana Brooke back down to NXT, where she's now getting used. But Emma, Piper, Tegan, Xia, Shotzi, Tamina, Ali, just gone. You have an opportunity here with these women to make new tag teams. Speaking of making new tag teams, well, 2 of the women that I said that aren't used are literally a former tag team. Shotzi and Tegan were a tag team. And when they were called to the main roster, they were together. Then Tegan was just released. And then Shotzi was just going, now Tegan's back, still not being used. It must be so frustrating to be living your dream in the biggest wrestling company on the planet, and you just aren't getting used. There's just no work for you. And these women are all talented. I am huge fans of Piper, Xia, and Shotzi. I'm huge fans of them. You tell them you can't find anything for them to do. I'm not even just talking about tag teams at this point. And I could see Piper and Xia being a team. Just like this kick-ass, badass team that just takes no prisoners. They could be what Ronda and Shayna should have been. But we've got to do something. So what do we do? Well, first things first, we have to give these women actual stories. And the stories only come from when they break up. Because it feels like the WWE just puts teams together just to break them up. And it's happened so many times. Why is it that we're more interested in Ronda and Shayna's story and not the tag team champions? You feel me? So, one, give them stories, give them depth. Let them grow, let them explore, and let them sink or swim. But we've got to do something. Then this one is twofold. We've got to give them more time and give them more matches. There should be a women's tag team match on every show. On Raw, on SmackDown, on NXT. On every show, there should be a women's tag team match. Why isn't there? Seriously, why? Why isn't there? Segments don't need to run long. Make them tighter. But we've got to do more. And let's go back to the original idea, the original thoughts of the women's tag team championships. And that is to be defended between all 3 brands. You want to get eyes on NXT? Well, bring Liv and Raquel back down to NXT. You want to bring eyes on NXT? Well, you shouldn't have broken up Ronda and Shayna, and I get why you did it. You want to make people care about NXT. You see, I'm going back to NXT. Have some NXT champions and have them come to Raw and SmackDown to call out somebody, to scout. But the championships have to be defended between the three brands. That's what the Iconics wanted, and that's damn sure what Bayley and Sasha wanted. I want to see this division grow, and I want to see this division be treated right and respectfully, because WoW does it with their division. And even though it's small, Impact does it with theirs. We just need to be better, and we just need more. It's that simple. But that is today's show. Thank you all for watching, for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Next week, we will be going back. The Art of Failure Part 4. This is the sub-series where we look at the failure of making new stars. And it's a fun one. It's a fun. We'll take 3 or 4 guys, girls, tag teams, and see just exactly where we went wrong. Check out the socials, Charismatic Creations on Facebook and YouTube, Charismatic_Creations 52 on Instagram and Threads, the 215 on Twitter, Coffee, Patreon, and as always, Shotzi Blackheart, Zaya Lee, Isla Dawn, Wendy Chu, Willow Nightingale, Bailey, and Gigi Dolan. Holla at your boy. Peace.